Most people don't fail because they are not capable. They fail because they keep choosing what feels easy in the moment. And what feels easy right now is silently building a life that will feel unbearable later. Think about that. Every time you delay, every time you avoid, every time you tell yourself, "I'll do it tomorrow," you are not just postponing effort, you are designing regret. The scary part is you won't feel the cost today. It shows up later, quietly, slowly, in the form of missed opportunities, wasted years, and a life that feels smaller than it should have been. So the real question is not, can you do hard things? The real question is, how much longer are you willing to live with the consequences of avoiding them? There is a moment that defines everything in a person's life. It doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't come with a warning. It's a small, almost invisible decision. The moment when you know exactly what you should do, but you choose not to do it. That moment is where two lives are created. One life where you step into discomfort, take control, and slowly build something meaningful. And another life where you stay comfortable, delay action, and slowly lose control without even realizing it. The dangerous part about choosing the easy path is that it feels harmless. Skipping one workout doesn't seem like a big deal. Procrastinating for one day feels justified. Avoiding one difficult conversation seems easier than dealing with the discomfort. But life doesn't measure you by single actions. It measures you by patterns, and patterns are built in these small, quiet moments. You don't wake up one day and suddenly become undisciplined. You become undisciplined by repeatedly choosing what is easy over what is necessary. And over time, those choices compound. They shape your habits shape your identity, and your identity shapes your future. Now here's something most people don't realize. The pain you avoid today doesn't disappear. It transforms, it waits, and it comes back later in a much heavier form. The discomfort of discipline is temporary, but the discomfort of regret, that stays. It lingers, it follows you. It shows up when you look at your life and realize you could have done more, been more, achieved more, but you didn't. Imagine waking up 5 years from now in the exact same place. Same struggles, same excuses, same frustrations. Nothing has changed. Not because you didn't have the potential, but because you kept choosing comfort over growth. That's not a lack of ability. That's a pattern of avoidance. And the truth is, most people already know what they need to do. That's not the problem. The problem is they're waiting to feel ready. They're waiting for motivation. They're waiting for the perfect moment. But that moment doesn't exist. It never has. You don't start because you feel ready. You start because you decide that staying the same is no longer acceptable. There's a hidden cost to living an easy life. At first, it feels relaxing, it feels comfortable, it feels safe. But over time, it starts to feel empty. Because deep down, you know you are capable of more. You know you are avoiding something. And that awareness creates a quiet frustration that grows every single day. On the other side, doing what is hard feels uncomfortable in the beginning. It challenges you, it stretches you, it forces you to face your weaknesses. But something powerful happens when you consistently choose that path. You start building confidence, not the kind that comes from words, but the kind that comes from proof. Proof that you can rely on yourself, proof that you can follow through, proof that you are in control. And once you build that, everything changes. But let's be honest, doing what is hard is not just about effort, it's about facing resistance, internal resistance, the voice in your head that tells you to wait, to delay, to take it easy. That voice is not your enemy, but it is not your guide either. It's designed to keep you comfortable, not successful. So every day you are in a silent battle, a battle between who you are right now and who you could become. And that battle is decided by what you do when things feel difficult. Do you lean in or do you pull back? Do you act or do you delay? Do you choose growth or do you choose comfort? Because every time you choose comfort, you are reinforcing a version of yourself that avoids challenges. And every time you choose what is hard, you are building a version of yourself that can handle anything. This is not about being perfect. It's not about always getting it right. It's about direction. It's about showing up even when you don't feel like it. It's about doing the work when no one is watching. It's about making decisions that your future self will thank you for, even if your present self resists them. And the truth that most people avoid, your future is not created by what you plan to do. It's created by what you actually do, consistently. Right now, you are either building momentum or you are building regret. There is no neutral. Every action counts. Every decision matters. Every moment is shaping something. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready. Now. Because the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to change. Not because the work gets harder, but because the habit of avoiding it becomes stronger. And once that habit takes control, it doesn't just affect one area of your life, it spreads. It shows up in your health, your work, your relationships, your mindset. That's how people slowly drift into a life they never intended to live. Not through one big mistake, but through repeated small decisions to avoid what is hard. But the opposite is also true. A better life is not built through one big breakthrough. It's built through small, consistent decisions to face discomfort, to take responsibility, and to do what others avoid. And it starts with one simple shift. Stop asking what feels easy. Start asking what is necessary. Because what is necessary will move your life forward. What feels easy will keep you exactly where you are. And the gap between where you are and where you want to be is filled with things you are currently avoiding. So the question is no longer what you want. The question is, what are you willing to do for it? Because in the end, life doesn't reward intentions, it rewards action. And the longer you delay action, the closer you move towards regret. So decide, not later, not someday. Decide now. There's a reason why most people stay stuck, even when they desperately want to move forward. It's not because they don't have goals, it's not because they lack information, and it's definitely not because they don't have time. The real reason is much deeper. It's because they have trained themselves to escape discomfort instead of confronting it. Think about your daily life for a moment. How many times do you reach for your phone when things get a little uncomfortable? How often do you distract yourself when a task feels too hard, too boring, or too overwhelming? That small act of escape might feel harmless, but it is quietly rewiring your mind. It is teaching you that the moment things get difficult, the correct response is to avoid, not act. And over time, that becomes your default behavior. You don't even realize it anymore. You just feel resistance and instantly look for relief. But here's the truth most people never face. Growth does not come from staying in comfort. Growth comes from staying in the discomfort long enough for it to change you. The first time you try to do something hard, it feels unbearable. Your mind starts negotiating. It tells you to take a break, to start later, to do something easier first. It sounds logical, it sounds reasonable, but it's a trap. Because every time you listen to that voice, you make it stronger. And every time you ignore it, you weaken it. This is where the real transformation begins. Not when everything feels right, but when everything feels difficult and you choose to act anyway. Most people are waiting for motivation to show up. They think once they feel inspired, everything will become easier. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. If you depend on it, you will only act occasionally. And occasional action will never change your life. What actually creates change is discipline. And discipline is not something you were born with. It is something you build, one decision at a time. You build it when you wake up and choose to get up instead of hitting snooze. You build it when you do the work even when you don't feel like it. You build it when you keep your word to yourself, especially on the days when it would be easier to break it. That's how you create a new standard for your life. And once that standard is set, everything starts to shift. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop making excuses. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You start acting because that's who you are now. But let's address something important. Doing what is hard does not mean doing everything at once. It doesn't mean overwhelming yourself or pushing to the point of burnout. That's another mistake people make. They go from doing nothing to trying to do everything, and when they fail to keep up, they fall back into old patterns. Real progress is not extreme, it is consistent. It is choosing one difficult thing and doing it daily. It is building a habit of facing discomfort, even in small ways, because small wins create momentum, and momentum changes everything. When you start stacking small victories, something shifts inside you. You begin to trust yourself, you begin to see progress, and that progress fuels more action. Now compare that to the opposite. When you constantly avoid what is hard, you create a different kind of momentum, a downward spiral. You lose trust in yourself, you start doubting your ability, and that doubt makes it even harder to take action. That's why the first step is so important, not because it's big, but because it breaks the pattern. Once the pattern is broken, everything becomes possible. But here's the part most people don't talk about. The journey of doing what is hard is not always rewarding in the beginning. There are days when you will put in effort and see no results. There are moments when it feels like nothing is changing, and that's where most people quit. They expect immediate results, and when they don't get them, they assume it's not working. But that's not how growth works. Growth is invisible at first. It happens beneath the surface. It builds slowly, quietly, and then, one day, it shows. The problem is, most people stop before that moment arrives. They give up in the phase where progress is being made but not yet visible, and that's why they stay stuck. If you want to separate yourself from the average, you have to learn to push through that phase. You have to keep going even when there is no immediate reward. You have to trust the process even when the results are delayed, because the results will come, but only if you stay consistent long enough. Now ask yourself this: what is one thing in your life right now that you know you should be doing, but you keep avoiding? Maybe it's taking care of your health. Maybe it's working on a goal you've been putting off. Maybe it's having a conversation you've been avoiding. Whatever it is, that thing holds more power than you think. Because it's not just about that one action, it's about what that action represents. It represents discipline. It represents courage. It represents growth. And every day you avoid it, you are reinforcing a version of yourself that stays stuck. But the moment you face it, even once, you start becoming someone different, someone stronger, someone more in control, someone who doesn't run from challenges. And that shift is everything. Because success is not built on big moments, it is built on daily decisions. Decisions that most people ignore. Decisions that seem small in the moment, but become massive over time. So if you are waiting for a big opportunity to change your life, you're looking in the wrong place. Your opportunity is already here. It's in the small choices you make every day. Do you choose comfort, or do you choose growth? Do you choose ease, or do you choose effort? Do you choose now, or do you delay again? Because every time you delay, you are not just postponing action, you are strengthening the habit of avoiding it. And habits, once formed, are hard to break, but not impossible. You break them by doing the opposite of what feels natural. You feel like delaying, you act. You feel like quitting, you continue. You feel like avoiding, you confront. That's how you take control back. That's how you rebuild your identity. That's how you create a life that moves forward instead of standing still. And once you start, you will realize something powerful. The things you thought were hard were not impossible. They were just unfamiliar. And once you get used to them, they become part of who you are. That's when the real transformation happens. Not when life gets easier, but when you become stronger. At some point, you have to stop asking for an easier path and start becoming a stronger person. Because the truth is, life was never designed to become easier just because you want it to. The challenges don't disappear. The pressure doesn't go away. The resistance doesn't fade. What changes is you. And that change begins the moment you take full responsibility for your life. Not partial responsibility, not when it's convenient. Full responsibility. For your results, for your habits, for your decisions, for where you are right now. That might feel uncomfortable to accept, but it's also incredibly powerful. Because the moment you stop blaming circumstances, other people, or timing, you take your power back. You realize that even if you can't control everything, you can control your actions, and your actions, repeated daily, are what shape your future. There is a clear difference between people who move forward in life and those who stay stuck. It's not intelligence, it's not luck, it's not background. It's how they respond when things get hard. One person sees difficulty and steps back. The other sees difficulty and steps in. One avoids discomfort. The other embraces it. One waits, the other acts. And over time, that difference becomes everything. Because life has a way of compounding your choices. Small actions don't stay small. They grow, they multiply, they create results that either move you forward or keep you trapped. If you consistently choose what is easy, you are building a life that becomes harder over time. If you consistently choose what is hard, you are building a life that becomes easier over time. That is the trade most people don't understand. They want an easy life now without realizing they are creating a difficult life later. But those who are willing to struggle now, who are willing to face discomfort, who are willing to push through resistance, they are the ones who earn freedom later. Freedom in their choices, freedom in their time, freedom in their life. And it all starts with a decision. A real decision. Not a temporary burst of motivation, not a promise you break in a few days, a decision that you commit to, regardless of how you feel. Because your feelings will change, your motivation will fade, but your standards, those must remain. You need to raise your standards to a level where avoiding what is necessary is no longer acceptable, where breaking your word to yourself feels worse than doing the hard thing, where discipline becomes your default, not your exception. And yes, it will be uncomfortable at first. You will feel resistance. You will feel doubt. You will feel the urge to go back to old habits. But that's part of the process. That's the moment where most people turn back. And that's exactly why you can't. Because every time you push through that resistance, you are proving something to yourself. You are proving that you are not controlled by your feelings. You are proving that you can act even when it's difficult. You are proving that you are capable of more. And that proof builds confidence. Real confidence. Not the kind that comes from thinking, but the kind that comes from doing. Once you build that, your entire perspective changes. You stop seeing challenges as obstacles. You start seeing them as opportunities. Opportunities to grow, opportunities to improve, opportunities to become stronger. And when you reach that point, something powerful happens. You no longer fear hard things. You start seeking them because you understand that everything you want is on the other side of discomfort. Every goal, every level up, every breakthrough, it all requires you to step into something difficult. So instead of asking, why is this so hard, you start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That shift alone separates you from the majority, because most people spend their lives trying to avoid difficulty, while a small percentage use it as a tool to build themselves. Now think about your future again. Not 5 years from now as a vague idea, but as a real moment. A day where you look back at your life and evaluate the choices you made. What will you see? Will you see someone who kept delaying, kept avoiding, kept choosing comfort, and ended up with regret? Or will you see someone who faced challenges, who did the hard things, who stayed consistent, and built something meaningful? Because that future is not random. It is being created right now, in this moment, with the decisions you are making. And the truth is, you already know what you need to do. You don't need more information. You don't need more advice. You need action. Clear, consistent, uncomfortable action. The kind of action that most people avoid. That is your advantage. Because in a world where people are constantly distracted, constantly choosing ease, constantly delaying effort,
The person who is willing to do what is hard stands out immediately. They move faster, they grow stronger, they create results that others only talk about, not because they're special, but because they are consistent, and consistency in doing what is hard is rare. That rarity is your opportunity. So stop waiting, stop overthinking, stop negotiating with yourself. The path is already clear. Do what is hard now, or face what is hard later. Because one way or another, life will demand effort from you. The only difference is when. You can choose it today in small, controlled doses, or you can be forced into it later in ways you cannot control. That choice is yours, but understand this clearly. Every day you delay, the cost increases. Every day you act, the reward compounds. So make the decision, not once, but daily. Choose discipline over comfort. Choose action over delay. Choose growth over ease. Again and again, until it becomes who you are. Because in the end, success is not something you chase, it is something you become. And you become it by doing what is hard. Now.